from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios, this is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in! Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. Rainy capital city today for the first time in like months. I think it's a very welcome sight for many of you out there whose yards have burned up. Mine has. Didn't run a sprinkler or anything. It just kind of burned up there in August. But we got some rain all day today. And I think many of us can enjoy that, or at least the vegetation around our homes will enjoy it. And we're going to enjoy the next 2 hours here on this Wednesday. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos, and plenty of football to talk here on this Wednesday. JD Piquel will be in his normal spot coming up in 15 minutes. It's a What If Wednesday as well. If you got some what ifs, hit us on Twitter at HuntPalmer88 or in the Bayou Ford chat on YouTube, and we can get to those. Got some Saints to get to. Matthew Brune is going to jump on at 2 o'clock. He wrote a film breakdown that I thought was really good on Auburn's offense and their defense as well. So we'll chat with Matthew Brune coming up at 2 o'clock. And as usual on Wednesdays at 2:30, our SEC Power Rankings. Get to those at the bottom of hour number 2. LSU and Auburn, 6 o'clock inside Tiger Stadium. It'll be a Saturday night in Death Valley. LSU announced a little bit earlier today that that game is sold out. We'll see what the environment's like. I think it should be pretty good. The weather's going to be good. LSU still very much has their goals out in front of them. It's a traditional rivalry game, and that's kind of where I wanted to start here, is that LSU and Auburn are not going to play next year. And LSU and Auburn may not play inside Tiger Stadium for a couple of years. We don't know what that's going to look like. And that's been a source of a lot of discussion. The morning show guys yesterday kind of went through their memories. I was listening to Scott Rabelais on with the Live at Lunch guys, and they went through some of their memories of this series over the years. Tex Morris has been a partner of our station for over a decade with Jimmy Ott for longer than that. And he's going to have his party tomorrow, big Auburn guy, and he's going to have a tailgate party out there at his office, and that's something that we look forward to every year at this station. And it's been a fantastic run between LSU and Auburn, and I don't want to just rehash all the stuff that has always been rehashed this week, but I do want to just point to some data and some personal memories of what LSU and Auburn meant. LSU and Auburn did not play annually, for those that are a little bit younger, until the SEC went to divisions in 1992. And since 1992, when this game became an annual game inside the SEC West, LSU has won 17 and Auburn has won 14. It has been remarkably closely contested over the years. Between 2000 and 2010, the LSU-Auburn winner won the West 7 of 11 times. Arkansas snuck in there, had a couple Bamas late there in 8 and 9. But 7 of 11 between 2000 and 2010, the winner of this game won the West. And those were my formative years in LSU football. The game that set the hook for me was the 97 Florida game here when I was 9. But I was at the Independence Bowl when I was 7 years old in 1995, and Eddie Kennison's running, and I'm going nuts, and that's fantastic. I was at the one against Notre Dame in 97. So I have earlier memories of LSU football, and certainly knew that was my team, and that's who my dad pulled for, and that's who I was pulling for, and all of that. But once you get to where I was 12 years old in 2000, into this run of through my college years, so that 10-year run from when you're 12 to when I'm sports obsessed at that point through my college years, this was the biggest game on the schedule. I think it would be very difficult for me to tell a 15-year-old who's in high school, hey, when I was younger, the Bama game wasn't that big a deal. When I was younger, like, the Auburn game was the game. And there are plenty of you that are older, and Alabama was that game in the 70s, and it's circled back around. There may be some of you older than that were really fired up to play Ole Miss or Tulane back in the day. But Auburn and LSU had their run. And while you could look at plenty of history, games that have more history, LSU and Ole Miss, LSU and Mississippi State, LSU and Alabama, you could look at maybe a rivalry that has been more hotly contested in the Tebow years with LSU and Florida. And you could look at a new one with Texas A&M that played at the end of the year where there's a lot more on the line. You cannot argue that there has been a more storied rivalry than the one between LSU and Auburn. I mean, we played Mississippi State more than any other opponent. How many times we just beat Mississippi State by 24 points and that was the end of the game and I don't really know anything else that happened? Like, that happens all the time. And it's been one-sided. LSU's won far more against Mississippi State. When you start looking at games that you can say 1, 2, or 3 words and immediately conjure up emotional memories about where you were and what you felt, that's pretty special. Earthquake. I wasn't around, but many of you were. The interception game. I don't have to tell you what team. I don't have to tell you what year. What, you know. Fourth quarter interceptions. The barn burned. Cigars. Leverage. Remember that one? Oh, I was in high school. A little intense. Didn't love the call. Got to be honest. Did not love the call on Auburn's missed extra point of leverage, which didn't get called the rest of the season. It's one word. Pass interference game. You could probably look at a few others there, but the one that certainly comes right to my mind is my freshman year at LSU, where Jamarcus throws over the middle to early Doucette, and Auburn comes through the back, and they throw the flag, and then pick it up. Flynn Bird. Don't have to say any more on that one. And then you could get a little bit more in depth with the 20-point comeback from a couple of years ago. And how about the fact that Auburn did not win inside Tiger Stadium from 1999 to 2021. And the head coach that broke that streak was not Tommy Tuberville, who had an undefeated season, was not Gene Chizik, that won a national championship, was not the Gus Bus, who played for a national championship at Auburn. It was Brian Harsin came in here and ended the streak with Bo Nix, who at that point was just an underachieving 5-star. He's certainly ascended to greater heights in Oregon. But you would have never bet. No, not Cam Newton, not the national chance. Of course, they didn't get the chance. I get it. But who's the quarterback and coach that busted it? Well, it's Bo Nix and Brian Harsin. It's been a ridiculous run. I didn't even mention Leonard Fournette's game where he went nuts. I didn't even mention Les Miles getting fired in 2016. Like, I'm not telling you it's the longest history. I'm not telling you it's the most intense history. I'm just telling you in terms of stories, there is not a game on LSU's schedule and has not been a rivalry that has produced more content in the last 30 years. And it's going away annually. LSU's still going to play Auburn. They'll still go to the Plains. They'll still fly the Eagle. They'll still come to Saturday night in Death Valley. That game will go on. It's just not going to happen every year. And the question is, do you as an LSU fan, are you going to miss that annually? Are you disappointed that Auburn's only going to come probably every 4 years instead of every 2 years? And that's your emotional connection to it, just how you feel. I've been consistent on this and certainly haven't changed as I go back down memory lane on this, that LSU playing Auburn in October, September, November, whenever it comes, and LSU playing Oklahoma in that same exact playing date, that's okay with me. Yeah, I have memories of playing Auburn and running down on the field when I was a sophomore in high school in 2001. I was an 8th grader in 2001 when the 9/11 game got postponed into November and LSU won that game and won the West for the first time. Yeah, I was in middle school, and I don't have that same connection with Oklahoma, even though 2 years later LSU beat them to win a national championship. No, I can't draw on years and years of memories. But the fact that Oklahoma's coming out of there in the crimson and cream is the same to me and the same level as it is if Auburn runs out of that tunnel. It's a big football game. I know it. Now, if you told me I was dropping Auburn and I was going to go play Western Kentucky, well, then we'd have a different discussion because that doesn't create the emotional stir, the incredible environment, the high-stakes football that we know and love. But the stakes to me are just as high if LSU goes to Austin, Texas to play as if they go to the Plains of Auburn. That's how I feel about it. Now, I didn't play for LSU. I may not be in your age range. We all have different reasons we love the sport and different reasons we watch the sport and different feelings and memories about pulling for LSU and all the great things that that's brought. I just am not going to be up in arms about not playing Auburn next year, not playing Mississippi State next year. If they took Florida off the schedule, I'd be fine. I'd be fine if we didn't play Alabama. Now, again, I don't want to go play in the Sun Belt. Don't misunderstand me. I want to play big-time football games. But to me, if you send LSU up to Neyland Stadium to play, or Georgia comes here, I'm just as fired up as if we're playing Auburn or Florida, who's a more traditional rival. But it bears mentioning just how great this series has been. And even when you don't expect it to be great, it's generally great. We've had some stinkers. Brandon Harris's first start was a whitewashing by Auburn. A couple years ago, LSU got smoked on the Plains. In 2011, Auburn came with a backup quarterback, and it was just an absolute bloodbath. But far more often than not, this game has delivered unbelievable stuff. I mean, I went through all those that we were talking about there. I didn't even mention a couple of them. Like, I didn't mention Bring Back the Magic. The storylines are there's almost a story for every year. That just doesn't exist for any other team on LSU's schedule. So LSU and Auburn will do it one more time annually at 6 o'clock on Saturday night in Death Valley, and I'm very much looking forward to getting inside Tiger Stadium. The first thing I tweeted out when LSU finished the deal against Missouri was, hey, this will be a pretty good environment. Because what have we had so far inside Tiger Stadium? Night game with Arkansas, okay. Grambling, that didn't do anything for anybody. You wait all summer for that great environment inside Tiger Stadium, and now that we're kind of into the season a little bit, you've got a traditional rival on the other side, and LSU still controls its destiny basically in the West if you assume Ole Miss isn't going to win out. Should be fun inside Tiger Stadium coming up on Saturday night. Let's talk some college football with J.D. Piquel of On3 Sports when we come back on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Love telling you about Jersey Mike. Still, it might be lunchtime for you, 1:15 here on this Wednesday afternoon. Swing on by Jersey Mike's, Highway 30 in Gonzales, near the new Heritage Shopping Center. Fantastic cold subs like the original Italian. It's got the ham, the prosciutto, the capicola, salami, pepperoni, and provolone. That's their number one seller, the number 13 original Italian. I tell you every day, I prefer the hot sandwich. You order that sandwich, they put that cheesesteak or that chicken right there on the griddle right in front of you, warm it up, put that melty cheese on top. It is A+. The Bacon Ranch Chicken Cheesesteak, give it a shot. I don't think you'll regret that. And remember, for your tailgating, your catering, Jersey Mike's can help you out. They do great work with their catering orders, and Hunt Palmer Show listeners at the Highway 30 in Gonzales location get 20% off tailgating. You got catering orders. If you got a big order for the tailgate this weekend for a high school football game, you just want to feed the office, Jersey Mike's can help you out with that. You can download the Jersey Mike's app, stop by and see our friends location on Highway 30 in Gonzales, or maybe a late lunch. Make it Jersey Mike's.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
The world's leaders in obesity research, obesity medicine, and obesity science are right here.
We're doing something that no one's ever done or trying to answer a question that no one's ever asked before.
Pennington is a real jewel when it comes to research.
We are finding the solutions to the world's worst chronic disease, which is obesity. Louisiana needs Pennington Biomedical.
Bayou Ford is taking $10,000 off MSRP on select new 23 Ford F-150 trucks. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Life in Louisiana is a song. A symphony of sound, colors, and movement. Life is here, now. For life's moments, big and small, always there. The right card, the right care.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail.
Charles Hannegriff join us for the Thursday edition of Live at Lunch from Jolie Pearl and Town Square Pizza. Matt Humans is with us. Dwayne Colucci is with us. And Paul Nolan giving us a Thursday night pick. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Every week in the middle of the week, we link up with our guy, JD Piquel from On3 Sports, host of The Hard Count on On3's YouTube channel. Look back at the week that was and ahead to the week that will be. JD, let's talk some football. How are you, sir?
I'm doing phenomenal, man. It feels like run-the-ball weather outside, so we're all good over here.
It's still a little bit warm here. We're in the mid-70s, but or close to 70, but it's raining here for the first time in like 3 months. So we're adjusting to that. But it should be a beautiful Saturday night in Death Valley coming up here, and that's the most important thing weather-wise down here this week. I wanted to look back at last week's slate, and I was curious where I wanted to start. Maybe Georgia, like, is that just a situation where Kentucky got their full attention, or are they starting to hit their stride?
Feels like a little bit of both to me. Like, we talked about it that Sunday after, and it's kind of like Georgia's this apex predator that doesn't really want their food handed to them in a bowl. And I know a lot of other SEC fan bases just kind of gag hearing me say that, but that's kind of how I feel about Georgia right now. It also feels like every single week they've taken incremental steps at some spots they're inexperienced at. Like Carson Beck, as talented as he is, like he's never been the guy at Georgia before. Mike Bobo, as you know, many places he's been, even though he's been the OC at Georgia before, he's never been the guy calling plays with Carson Beck. So it kind of feels like they're finding their footing, and then all of that on top of the fact that there was all this talk about Kentucky and what they did to Florida. Like when it comes to a head coach getting their team dialed in, when the mission is crystal clear, like, hey, Kentucky's going to try and come downhill. They're going to try to be more physical than you. They were way more physical than Florida. Are you up to par? And I feel like there's nobody better than Kirby Smart when it comes time for a task like that. So I think it was a combination of things, but I think Georgia's trending to play their best ball again in November.
The comparison I made to my listeners when previewing that game, I'm going, look, I've been sitting here preparing for an LSU-Alabama game for like 10 or 12 years where you know that the most powerful force in college football is got all its focus right on you, and it can be uncomfortable. LSU held their own in a lot of those games, but a couple got away from them. Kentucky doesn't have the firepower that LSU did over that decade and a half, and so that's what it looked like to me. It's like, yeah, Kentucky, you got a solid team, but when you get the full attention, the full focus of the most powerful force going, it is usually not a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, they got to buy better players, you know,
yeah.
like that's kind of
what he
kind
said.
of a joke, but I mean, like if I'm in that locker room, that was the thing that I think got overlooked the most with that whole statement. Like if I'm a Kentucky football player, the day after hearing that, I'm like, screw this, dude. Like you want to go buy better players? Like we're not good enough for you? Like I don't think he, lost the locker room. I don't think that's something we should say or like talk about. But I do think like that would have to be a little bit of damage control in house to be like, hey, no, you guys are good enough to beat Georgia. Like I don't know how you recover from that one as a coach or walk that one back. But yeah, the personnel was definitely evident how different it was out there for sure.
Let's stay in the SEC. Bama goes to College Station, wins 26-20. Did they find something in the passing game, or is A&M's defensive secondary just that bad?
Yeah, kind of similar to what we said about Georgia. Like the right answer for me is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't think Jermaine Burton's like a world beater. I don't think Isaiah Bond is a world beater, even though I think he is a pretty good wide receiver. I just think A&M has very real problems on the back end. Now, does that show itself this week against Tennessee? I'm sure we'll talk about that. I'm not ready to say that just yet. But it does feel like Alabama is starting to slowly but surely put some pieces together. And we talk about, teams trending the right way. It feels like you probably should have got Bama when they were vulnerable, because I don't think that team that lost to Texas in week 2 is the same team we're seeing right now. They feel like they have more of an identity. Jalen Milroe seems more sure of himself. Like, you have to imagine just emotionally and mentally to slay the demons of last year with what happened in that A&M game for him had to be crucial for him, morale-wise. So I think they're starting to become more sure of themselves, and I think that's dangerous for college football.
I know you deal with a lot of fan bases on a daily basis. How is Notre Dame Nation feeling at this point in the schedule? Close loss to Ohio State, then you go to Duke and find a way to get it done, and then maybe run out of gas, but either way, you lose to Louisville by a couple of scores.
The day after, we had people in the YouTube comment section saying, fire the OC, typical like overly emotional response to a loss, but it felt a little bit like the fan base thought there was more there than just Notre Dame running out of gas. Now, from the outside looking in, I think a lot of people thought, hey, this is a tricky spot. You got to go play a ranked Louisville team that's hot right now, and you had the equivalent of like just the emotional gauntlet the last few weeks. So I think the fan base is probably, if I had to guess, starting to come back to level after dealing with the difficult, reality that you probably aren't making the college football playoff this year. And there's really no time to lick their wounds, because once Louisville was supposed to be that letdown game you could look at the beginning of the season, and now you had that loss, and now you got to go get ready to play USC and their everything offense they got rolling. So they're probably glad you're going back to South Bend, but I think morale is starting to become more stable as the week wears on. And I tell you what, beating a team like USC and spoiling their college football playoff hopes, or putting a dent in them at least, I think would go a long way. I think it's an identity week for Notre Dame to find out how they respond. I think it'll be big for Marcus Freeman.
Kind of an identity week for Oklahoma and Texas last week in the Red River rivalry. And Oklahoma comes out with what was a surprising win to me. How did you feel about it?
I just did not think that Oklahoma was as far along as they showed they were in that game. The big question for me going into it, as I think it was for a lot of people, was, hey, that defensive line for Texas, heck, the offensive line for Texas, like they had shown they could really lean on people. I mean, what they did to Bama, what they did to Kansas, running for over 300 yards. I mean, that's a really, I think, solid front seven on the defensive side of the ball for Texas. So for Oklahoma to be able to make those kind of strides and to win a football game like that, and to play aggressive, like there was a lot of composure for them, a lot of maturity from them that we don't really expect from a year 2 football team. So I think as a whole, like you come away from that one and you feel like, okay, Brent Venables can do this thing. Okay, everything we saw last year with the 5 losses by 1 score, they are starting to make some progress there. And I mean, Dylan Gabriel too, to have the cool hand he did in the last drive of that game. We said it on our show, like you can't fake who you are when there's real deal pressure on the table there. And the way that he responded in that spot, I was really impressed by. So they're going to be in that conversation right now on Selection Sunday, and would be surprised if we don't see a rematch of that one, quite honestly, when it comes to conference championship weekend.
I think you're right on the money there. Chatting with J.D. Piquel, host of the Hard Count on On3 Sports YouTube channel. You can find college football content there every single day. Let's go to this coming week. Oregon and Washington out west, probably the game of the day. Top 10 matchup between two schools that don't like each other very much and are headed to a new conference here coming up. How do you see that one in Seattle?
That one's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
It's just like the Pac-12 to throw a party before they turn the lights out on that house. I really just feel like Oregon is the most complete team on the West Coast. We've seen Washington be maybe managed a little bit. I don't know that we've seen them be stopped just yet offensively. I don't know if Oregon's the team to do that, but you look at last year's game, and obviously two completely different teams. I think Oregon felt like they should have won this thing last year in Austin, where Bo Nix goes down and they have that fourth down play where they don't pick it up with Bo Nix out of the game. And so I think there's kind of this edge for Oregon in this game. Emotionally, they kind of feel like they're looked over because everyone's talking about how many points Washington's scoring and USC's got Caleb Williams. Like, I think Oregon's looking to make a statement. And again, going back to what I said about just being a complete football team, I think they have advantages on the line of scrimmage. I think they have advantage running the football. I think like at the places that are really going to show themselves in this game that Washington's going to be challenged and they haven't been challenged before. I like Oregon in that one. I like Oregon a lot in that one, to be honest with you, Hunt.
Is this a bigger game on the road for A&M or at home for the Tennessee Vols?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think probably for Jimbo, it's a little bit bigger on the road. Because if you lose a second game in a row, and even though it is Bama and it is Tennessee, like, I think it would get a little bit louder around there, as we've been known. We've known that's kind of the flammable situation they have in College Station right now. I think Tennessee is going to be fine long term. I don't know that Joe Milton's the guy that we were hoping he would be at this point in time if you're a Tennessee ball fan, but even so, like, I think for A&M, we're kind of getting to that point where it's like, hey, I know it's not your starting quarterback, but like, what are we doing here? What are we going to be? And the fact that you're even having this conversation around, well, how much is that buyout actually? Let's revisit that again. Is $70 million really that much? Like, can we scrounge a few dollars up and maybe find a way to get this thing done? Like, that conversation would get a lot more traction if they lose to Tennessee, who's not Tennessee of last year.
All right, LSU and Auburn Saturday night in Death Valley here. Auburn coming off a bye after a scrappy effort at home against Georgia. LSU hadn't really stopped anybody, but they sure do score a lot. Do you think Auburn's got a chance to come in and upend LSU?
Yeah, I think they do. I'd like them a lot more if it was in Jordan-Hare.
Yeah.
I mean, Death Valley at night is a huge factor, as I'm sure you know, Hunt, having been to your fair share of those kind of experiences. I think that this Auburn will believe going into a game like this because of the way they played against Georgia, so we'll see how that shows itself. I mean, for Auburn being, double-digit underdogs, if they're going to have a way to win this game, there's a couple non-negotiables, the first of which being they have to limit some element of LSU's offense, preferably the run game. If they get their shots in the pass game, which I expect them to for LSU, like, it is what it is. You probably saw that coming. You got to live with it. But if you just die a slow death because you can't stop Logan Diggs, you can't stop Jaden Daniels running the football, like, that's just going to be a miserable Saturday night, or more miserable than it could be. They got to find a way to get extra possession. They got to find a way if it's onside kick, if they got, create turnovers, if they punt, like, they got to find some way to have more ammunition than LSU, because if they play them straight up, like, I don't see a world where Auburn can keep pace with LSU. So I'm picking LSU. I personally don't feel great about the spread either way with how LSU's played defense, but I think LSU's just an absolute Harlem Globetrotters exhibit right now with what they're doing offensively, and Jaden Daniels deserves all the Heisman love that he's getting. And, I think they get it done in Death Valley.
Is it possible for Jaden Daniels to kind of RG3 this thing and win a Heisman Trophy if LSU were to go 9-3? Say they lose to Alabama, but they beat Florida, Auburn, and Texas A&M. They don't go to Atlanta. They're not in the college football playoff. Is there still an opportunity for Jaden Daniels to win the Heisman Trophy?
I think there is. I think there has to be a couple of things that fall his way. I think you would probably hope that it's a Michigan ground and pound approach again, and they are dominant through the Big Ten, and maybe Penn State ends up with a loss or two somewhere along the way there. Because my concern would be another quarterback, like, best quarterback on the best team gets it. And so Carson Beck, I don't know if he's really found his stride just yet. I think he's getting there, but last week was encouraging. We'll see if he can keep that rolling. So I think there's a path there for sure. I think it has to be RG3-esque in the sense that, like, the video game numbers got to keep rolling in.
Yeah.
And I think LSU's got to keep this trend going in November for sure.
We shall see. We'll do it again next week. Enjoy the football, JD.
Appreciate you. Have a great weekend, man.
Sure will. JD Pickell, host of The Hard Count on On3 Sports. Subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. You get all his college football content. Does an awesome job over there, and he's with us every single Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It means it's time for some What If Wednesday. We'll do that next on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
LWCC is Louisiana loyal. They're elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. We tell you about a champion of Louisiana every day here on The Hunt Palmer Show. I've been telling you about Marucci Sports. Marucci, born right here in the capital city of Baton Rouge, and it has become a behemoth outfitting tons of major leaguers with their equipment and doing other things for our great state. They attract great talent in terms of creating jobs. They keep great talent here in the state of Louisiana to work, and they bring tourism dollars each and every summer with the Marucci World Series. Marucci Sports certainly a champion of Louisiana. If you know of a champion of Louisiana, we'd love you to go to lwcc.com/champions and nominate a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is here to elevate and celebrate champions of Louisiana. That's their mission, and they let us be a small part of that. If you'd go nominate a champion of Louisiana, it could be a nonprofit, a person, could be a business. We would love to tell their story via LWCC. Marucci Sports, certainly a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana loyal.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
It was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Kate Voisin, join me and the coaches Todd Black and Jimmy Roy for the next edition of Louisiana Prep Weekly. Our special guest will be Walker head football coach Chad Mahaffey. It's Louisiana Prep Weekly, Wednesday night at 6, live from Walk-Ons in Town Center on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Matthew Brune from On 3, part of the Bengal Tiger, with Shea Dixon and Billy Embody, wrote a good piece on Auburn and what he saw in his film review of Hugh Freeze's Tigers. So we'll do that at 2 o'clock. Got some Saints talk at 2:15 and SEC Power Rankings coming up at 2:30. But it's 1:30 on Wednesday, so let's do some What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question, what if?
All right, first one here. What if LSU can't keep up in the NIL game?
Yeah, I get this a good bit. If that's the case, then you won't get as many good players.
I don't understand how anyone could think that LSU can't keep up, though.
Well, I mean, if you just count dollars, and A&M and Texas want to play hardball, and USC wants to play hardball, like LSU doesn't have the donor base to keep up on a mega level year over year. Now, if this thing equalizes and we think that the dollar amounts come down and the expectation's not quite as high from the high school players, then I think LSU is just fine. But I do think that because you can do it so obviously, I mean, it's still against the spirit of the rule, theoretically. You're not supposed to be able to induce players to come to your school and to stay at your school now with the transfer portal with money. That's not supposed to be it's supposed to be against the rules. It's the only rule, though. It's the only thing that people are doing. So you're going to have to spend money to keep your players and get players. Now, LSU, like everybody else, has financially compensated players forever and ever. Amen. But LSU can't compete with the money of some of these other schools in terms of the donor base and the interest. Now, how often do A&M's donors want to keep writing these checks? That's the question. Like, you got guys that, they brought in like, what was it, 7 5-stars and 4 of them left immediately. And you start to look at that and go, well, do I really want to do this? But the fact of the matter is that, LSU is not in a position that some of those other schools are in. So I'm not totally concerned about it right now, but I do think you're going to see situations
where it's not like there's that many schools that are.
It's just the ones you have to compete against. For the players, if you're Iowa and you're loading up on 3 stars from Iowa and Kentucky and Indiana, like, you're not going to have to compete for those guys.
Yeah.
If you're LSU and you want to go to Florida and Southern California and Houston and Dallas and keep your guys from New Orleans around, and you want to get these 5-star guys from right around here, they're going to have to get paid. They're just not. There's no other way around it. So I think that it's going to be an uphill battle for LSU, but I think it's one they can climb.
What if you win the Powerball tonight?
So I think it's like 1.4 billion or something. 1.7 billion is a projection it's going to be. So that would pay out somewhere in the neighborhood, if you do the lump sum at 700 million, somewhere in the neighborhood of $350, $400 million in the payout. So you're talking about me getting a check for $300 million. I'll tell you what, Beck. I'll come to work until they find a co-host.
Wow.
I'll do this show for 2 hours until they can figure that out. I don't want to leave Guarantee high and dry there. Probably not going to show up at 8 a.m. anymore.
Yeah.
And, I like to talk about sports, so I'll do it. But we're not going to work very much longer. And then I'm going to be playing a lot. I'm probably still going to live in Baton Rouge, honestly, although that would drive my wife nuts because she would probably want to move. My job is what tethers us here. I would prefer to be here. But, yeah, I'll do a little bit of work, and then I'm going to stop cold and not work ever again. And I'm going to play a lot of golf. Probably not going to get that much better at it. But we're going to move. We're going to spend some time in Cabo. We're going to watch some Cubs games in Chicago, travel a little bit, and not really
get a house in Chicago, honestly, if you want.
Yeah,
to.
I'll get some kind of a Wrigleyville apartment type deal. Yeah, and that'll be just fine. We'll be in good shape. But no, I'm not one of those people that needs to work or have some purpose in life. I don't need to if I got lucky enough to win the Powerball, that's just a lot I got in life, and we're gonna deal with that accordingly. We're gonna play a lot of golf.
What if you could predetermine the outcome of one remaining LSU football game this year?
I think a lot of you, when you say that, might think I would go straight to A&M. I'm not going to go to A&M right now. I would win in Tuscaloosa and take my chances with A&M here in Baton Rouge. As gut-wrenching as that was, to win the Bama game last year and then lose your national title hopes, as slim as they were, in College Station to that god-awful football team, that was awful, and I would hate to beat Alabama this year, have the same situation crop up, and then lose to them on our home field. That would be terrible. I still have to take the Alabama game and take my chances somewhere else. So I will predetermine that we'll beat Alabama.
All right. From
Oh, by the
Twitter.
way, LSU will be able to keep up pretty well in the NIL game if I win the Powerball. If we're just talking about that, like we'll make some things happen. If I get $340 million.
All right, next one here from Twitter via Baton Rouge Zydeco. What if you could change the play call in one LSU game from history? Which play, what game, and what's the outcome?
So I get to change the play call, not the result.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it says you could change the play call, but then it says what's the outcome. I guess you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, you'd have to run something else. The first thing that comes to mind is, and I'd have to go back and look at the timestamp, but you'll all know what I'm talking about. In 2012, when LSU played Bama here, LSU had the ball, was moving it great. Jeremy Hill was running it. Mettenberger was throwing it. They were really good in the second half of that game before the Yeldon screen pass, and they had an opportunity to put the game on ice with the football, and I think they threw it on second and third down. It seems like there was a slant that got batted down or something. They didn't give Jeremy the ball to run the clock out, and then Bama missed a field goal, and Bama was able to come down and hit Yeldon on the screen pass. I would
So
change
you're talking
that
about the turnover on downs, or when they missed a field goal, the drive they missed a field goal?
Drive we missed a field goal.
Okay.
We had a chance to run the clock out basically, and they just weren't able to do it. And that play call I would have changed. The other one that comes to mind, probably not the play call, maybe the execution. And this game did not have nearly as big a consequence because Ed Ogeron still got the job, and who cares you playing a Sugar Bowl or not this far down the line. But when Darius Geis went the wrong way against Florida at the end of that game, and that would have sent LSU to the New Year's Six. That was a bummer at the end of the season with the game that got moved because of Hurricane Matthew. I'm trying to think play calls late that you would have changed. Nothing's like coming to mind immediately. I mean, you could have gone for 2 against Florida State last year. That would have been good. But yeah, put your thoughts in the Bayou Ford chat if I'm missing one that's absolutely glaring, where there was one play that didn't go the way that LSU wanted it to go, and it was massively impactful. I think the 2012 Bama, second and third down were pretty significant there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the play-by-play. It's kind of confusing though on ESPN. It says that on second and 11, Mettenberger threw a pass to Odell Beckham for 22 yards for a first down with 3 minutes left. And then after that, it goes straight to second and 7. Jeremy Hill, loss of 3, timeout, Bama. Jeremy Hill, 4-yard rush, and then it's 4th and 6, and then they kicked the field goal on 45 yards and missed it.
Yeah, there was controversy there that resulted in something. I don't know. I have to go back and watch the tape and see what happened. But there was a chance to win that game outright, and they didn't get it done, and they gave Bama the ball back, which didn't go well.
All right, this one's from Stephen Miller. What if the Cubs were playing Game 7 of the World Series in Wrigley and LSU were playing Bama while both were undefeated? It's a top 3 matchup. You get gifted a ticket above the Cubs dugout. Where would Hunt be?
It's easy, Steven. Listen, I got a job to do, okay? I got a commitment to LSU football. I'll be there when LSU's playing Alabama, unless my cousin gets married like last year. Look, I'd be at LSU and Bama. That's the biggest deal in this state. It's part of my job. It's a huge deal. As much as I would love.
Okay, what if it wasn't part of your
7,
job?
I would still be at LSU and Bama. That's number one priority there. The Cubs I love dearly, and would have to find a way to monitor that somehow, some way. I tried to stream the Cubs winning the pennant, and I couldn't get the internet working and out at Tiger Stadium well enough. I wasn't in the press box for that game. I was in a seat, and I was trying to stream the Cubs against the Dodgers, and I couldn't get it. So they won the pennant, and I wasn't able to watch. So that kind of gives you an indication right there.
All right, this one's from Twitter as well. What if Nick took the Texas gig when Mac hung it up? Would conference alignment still happen?
Wow. So they would have become a power instantly. Nick leaves Bama and goes to Texas. They become a power. I'm not 100% sure why Texas left the Big 12 in terms of what the dollar amounts were and how much control they had over it and what Oklahoma felt about it and all that kind of stuff. So I can't answer that with a much degree of certainty. But Texas becomes a football power, and I would guess still ends up in the SEC because the dollar and cents are worth it. I don't know what the Longhorn Network can pay them. I don't know what their deal was with the Big 12, and I don't know how Oklahoma feels about all of it. Those two are clearly the ones that were driving the bus for this entire thing. So my gut tells me that Texas still ends up here. They've just got 3 national championships in tow with them. All right, that's it for What If Wednesday. Appreciate y'all firing those at me on Twitter and in the Bayou Ford chat. I'm going to dig through the Bayou Ford chat here during this timeout to see if I missed any obvious play calls that we'd have to change. But we'll get to those next time around. When we come back, a little sound from Brian Kelly to close out hour number 1.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com is that website. David Duvall and his team been in the game for 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you've ever wanted to get rid of your bathtub that you never use, you want a beautiful shower installed, let me tell you about the one contractor in our area who's the absolute best, and that's David Duvall at One Bath and Closets. They come in, they remove that fiberglass tub that's wasting all your space, put in a gorgeous shower that reclaims your square footage and is a little more aesthetically pleasing than that old tub that sits there. They also can help you with safety, security, and accessibility. They can put a non-slip floor in your bathroom. They can put grab bars where you need them, or maybe a loved one in your life needs them. So many options at One Bath and Closets, and you won't know unless you bring David Duvall and his team out for that free consultation. You can find that on the website, onebathandclosets.com. You can also see pictures of their great work, testimonials from their satisfied customers. One Bath and Closets. Find them at onebathandclosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Ford is taking $10,000 off MSRP on select new 23 Ford F-150 trucks. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
His name was Cain. He had a horse along the countryside. I saw him ride. One day they found him.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Scooncha, fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water. They can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor? So you stay right where you need to in casting lines. Or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast. All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years, they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front-to-back boat service.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just...
Tune in this Sunday as we bring you a trio of NFL games. We'll start with the noon kickoff, Washington Commanders at Atlanta Falcons, and then immediately following that, we'll take you to Patriots at Raiders, and then our nightcap, the New York Giants and Buffalo Bills. Tune in on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
My first experience was being the head coach at Ole Miss or an assistant at Ole Miss, and, you know, listening to the stories of that rivalry from whether it's Johnny Bald or former players that have played it. And, you know, that was a pretty big rivalry for me when I first got in this conference. So I guess that's probably why going there and competing is always felt very important.
That's Hugh Freeze talking about coming to a Saturday night in Death Valley. He'll bring Auburn in here for the first time coming up this coming Saturday night. It was on the teleconference earlier today, and Brian Kelly took his turn on the teleconference as usual. And one of the quotes he provided during the teleconference was in regards to LSU's defense enforcing some turnovers. Obviously, you got the Perkins pick in this game that you just won. Major Burns had a pick 6 in the game. Big strip sack. And it was a big play a couple of weeks ago. And that's the kind of thing that I think LSU is going to need to do. But the question was, can creating turnovers and big plays on defense kind of become your identity?
It's like anything else. Turnovers, tackles for loss, sacks, those things become contagious, and we're hoping that we catch a little bit of that. You got to make a couple of plays, and we hadn't made any plays up to this time other than an interception here. We had one against Arkansas. But these are the kinds of things that get a defense feeling good about themselves and gain some confidence. So, again, I think it comes down to being in the right place, being fundamentally sound, and then obviously making some plays when you have an opportunity. We made these plays this past weekend, so we need to continue to do that.
It's an interesting thought because while turnovers are really the goal of a defense, and you hear defensive coordinators all the time talk about working on getting turnovers and punching the ball out and diving on footballs, and they work on falling on fumbles, and there are certainly things you can work on and things you can emphasize, but turnovers can't really be counted on as an identity of a defense. Like if you're looking at Alabama had a run there for like 5 or 6 years where they led college football in defensive scores by a huge amount, and that's because they put a ton of pressure on opposing offenses. They had leads. They were blitzing and rushing the passer, forcing teams to throw, and they've just got bigger and better players. So over time, yes, they were able to create huge plays on defense with turnovers. That's an example of it on the positive end. You look at that Miami team a couple of years ago. What was that, 2017, where they had the turnover chain out? And I look at that, and I'm like, that's kind of just luck happening. The Saints were so good at creating turnovers in their Super Bowl team in 2009, but can you really count on running backs dropping the ball? I mean, if I had Tyrann Mathieu in his college career, I could probably count on him creating 5 or 6 turnovers over the course of a year, but he was a unicorn. So turnovers generally come from good defense, not a defense being good at forcing turnovers with weaknesses elsewhere. LSU is going to have to count on 4 or 5 big plays a game, whether that's a third down sack that creates a field goal choice instead of a touchdown, whether that's a big interception that shortens the field for a great offense, whether that's a strip sack, but it's not going to be the identity of the defense. It's just what they're going to have because I just don't think that LSU is going to show up in the biggest games of the year and hold a team to 17 points. That, to me, seems like it's not realistic to expect. So I hope they're more aggressive. I hope they, rip at the ball at times. Make sure you make the tackle, but when you've got an opportunity to hit the quarterback from the blind side, hammer down on that thing. If a ball gets tipped, hopefully it tips the right direction, because those are things you're going to have to cling to with this defense. It's not going to be a situation where they cure all these ills. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think the point that I'm making is relatively clear. Yes, they need these things to happen. No, do I think they're going to be some sort of force of nature in creating huge plays and pick sixes and strip sacks every week? Probably not. Maybe the big play is a third down sack. Maybe it's a big TFL. Maybe it's a good job by the defensive end to create pressure and draw a holding call. These are the wins that we're looking for instead of, well, how many yards did you hold them to and how many points did you hold them to? You're trying to hold them to just a little bit less than your crazy offense however you can do it, make it happen. And I think that maybe some turnovers here or there, creating maybe some short fields could help. But do I think they're going to create the turnover chain or be the 2009 Saints? Probably not. Probably not. We'll have more from Brian Kelly and Hugh Freeze coming up on tomorrow's show. We got a lot to get to in hour number 2. Matthew Brune is going to be with us in 5 minutes talking about his piece, breaking down Auburn on film. He always does an awesome job with that. Got some Saints discussion at 2:15 regarding their secondary, and we'll chat SEC football power rankings coming up at 2:30. If you missed any of hour number 1, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or on YouTube where we're hanging out with those of you in the Bayou Ford chat. Throw us a like, Bayou Ford chat, if you would. We always appreciate that. Hope you're staying dry out there if you're in the capital city, and appreciate you locking us in. Come back with us after Sports Center. We're talking with Matthew Brune.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months on all new 23 Ram 1500 trucks in stock. All with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Scooncha, fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water. They can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor? So you stay right where you need to in casting lines. Or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast. All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years, they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front-to-back boat service.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Colts rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson placed on injured reserve with a sprained AC joint in his throwing shoulder. A source told ESPN's Adam Schefter Richardson is expected to miss 4 to 8 weeks depending on his rehab and whether or not he'd still need surgery on the shoulder. Dolphins running back Devon Achane on IR. He's out at least 4 games. How could the Phillies and Braves possibly top what happened 2 days ago with that crazy game-ending double play that tied the NLDS at a game apiece? We'll find out today in Game 3 in Philadelphia. ESPN MLB insider Buster Olney.
Those are the 2 best teams in baseball right now, and there's a gap between the other ones, which is why this is, the Phillies and Braves, they're kind of Ali Frazier. And if you want to say the Braves are Ali, they came up off the ropes in Game 2, and now we'll see, in Smoking Joe's hometown, how the Phillies are going to respond.
Buster Olney on Unsportsmanlike. Coverage of that game, 4:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. We've also got Astros and Twins, Game 4 ALDS at 6:30 Eastern, capped off by the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, Game 3 NLDS at 8:30 Eastern.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy. Coming up Thursday, I'll tell you which Week 6 matchups will have the biggest impact on the playoff race. ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2 on a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Half the work week in the rear view mirror, officially working towards the weekend. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Head out to the JimsFirearms.net hotlines where we'll find our guy Matthew Brune, writes for the Bengal Tiger, part of the On3 network. Matthew, how are you, sir?
Hey, Hunt, I'm doing great. Just another week of football, and then, basketball is getting here soon.
I'm fired up for that. I think there's a little momentum for Matt McMahon and company. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to talk LSU and Auburn first. You wrote a film breakdown of the Auburn Tigers over on the Bengal Tiger, and I want to start with the Auburn offense. We know that Hugh Freeze was a really, really strong offensive coach in his time at Ole Miss, had some really good offenses behind Bo Wallace and Chad Kelly. He comes to Auburn, relinquishes his play calling duties to Philip Montgomery, former Tulsa head coach. And we have gotten to see Auburn play a couple of stout defensive fronts in Georgia and Texas A&M, and you kind of focused on the run game to start. What'd you see?
Yeah, that's kind of where they have allocated a lot of their emphasis as an offense. When you have Jarquez Hunter at running back and they've added Brian Battie behind him, that's clearly the strength. It's clearly the strength of their offense is along the line of scrimmage as well. At quarterback with Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford as their 2 guys, they use their legs a lot as well. So, I wrote about their versatility in the run game. I think that's a big part of their success. They've run the ball over 58% of the time this season, and even more so through the 2 SEC games. So I was really impressed by the way that they were consistently able to move the ball on A&M and Georgia. Sack-adjusted rushing yards per carry was 5.7. I mean, that's pretty substantial numbers, and now they're obviously going against the LSU defense front that has struggled in that regard this year.
Did you see anything better from LSU against Missouri from the defensive front?
Yeah, I thought they showed flashes. I thought Mason Smith played his best game. I think Mekhi Wingo continues to impress, and then I think from a pass rushing perspective, more than anything, they were able to get home with 4, which is something that they haven't been able to do very much throughout the year. So that was one of my bigger takeaways, and that's something I've harped on the entire year was if this defense is going to be any good, they have to be a good defensive line. And I thought that was implied going into the year, but through, 4 or 5 games, that had not been the case. But I think we started to see flashes of, what we expected in the Missouri game.
So how do you expect this Auburn running game against LSU's front matchup to look on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Auburn will have success. I don't see LSU shutting it down. I think Auburn is a much more diverse rushing attack than what Mississippi State was. I had no doubt that LSU was going to shut down Mississippi State. I don't think Mississippi State's offense is good at all, at least in that scheme. And Auburn kind of knows what it is, though. It's very much entrenched in this. They know it works. They can move the ball down the field. I do think LSU will have some success in the red zone this week, potentially, and so maybe they can hold to some field goals and that be the difference. But I think Auburn will get its yards. I wouldn't be surprised if it's over 5 yards per carry again.
In your piece, you have a bolded paragraph titled "Struggles in the Pass Game when breaking down Auburn in the lead." Not to spoil it, but it's humorous. The pass game has been atrocious. Is your lead there? What did you see when you turned on the tape of Auburn trying to throw the football?
Yeah, Peyton Thorne transfers in from Michigan State. Robbie Ashford returns from last year. Obviously, with Hugh Freeze, he kind of just having to make do with what he has. The quarterback position is not ideal. They took a lot of receiver transfers over the offseason, and as we know, with transfers, it's hit or miss, and they've been very shaky out wide. Have 144 yards through 2 conference games. I would expect them to be a little bit more dynamic in the pass game as far as just maybe hit a couple one-on-ones against LSU, but overall it's not something that I'm super worried about LSU folding and giving up 300 passing yards to Peyton Thorne. I just don't think he's near the caliber of the quarterbacks that LSU has faced this year.
How much do you expect to see Thorne versus Ashford, assuming the game stays fairly competitive? Obviously, if LSU gets up 28 points, you're probably going to see a lot more of Thorne trying to throw it. But what do you think the plan is for Hugh Freeze in terms of using his quarterbacks?
Yeah, that was one of the more impressive things for me watching Auburn versus Georgia was the way that they used Ashford as that second quarterback and used his legs and were able to run him as basically a wildcat quarterback, and it worked. They gashed Georgia with Ashford, and that's something that I wouldn't be surprised at all if they went to. I know the LSU defense is preparing for both quarterbacks. Thorne is much more of the passer, so when Ashford's in the game, I expect him to run a large majority of the time. And with that being said, it's still hard to stop because they are so versatile. I think they run block really well on the perimeter, and then Hunter and the TR2 really solid back. So it's I expect it to be mostly Thorne, but Ashford will get his, let's say, 12 to 15 snaps probably.
Let's talk about the Auburn defense that you watched on tape. What's the strength of this defense?
Yeah, going into the year, I had pretty high expectations of their secondary, and that's still fairly the case. I think they're pretty solid back there. They have a good amount of returners from last year's team. I think Jalen Simpson at safety has been awesome for them. Pritchett and James at corner are really solid. And then up front, I was not expecting them to be as good as they are. I thought they would really struggle with depth, with personnel on the line of scrimmage. But through 2 games against A&M and Georgia, I think they've been really, really stout. And as a result, there's an argument to be made that Auburn's the best defense LSU's played this year. And I'm starting to think that that's the case.
Interesting. I don't think anybody would have thought that when we started this thing in August. Does that give you any pause about what LSU's offensive production will look like on Saturday?
No, but I don't think, obviously coming off of games against, Ole Miss and Arkansas and Missouri, I do think Auburn is a step ahead of those defenses. And with Steele as their defense coordinator, I think they're going to be prepared. I don't see any defense, besides maybe Alabama, really slowing down LSU. But at the same time, if LSU's offense maybe hits a slow start or hits a slow start to the second half, it definitely wouldn't surprise me if they left the door open for a couple possessions here for Auburn to maybe try to get something going there. I don't see it quite being a blowout in this one.
Matthew Brune is our guest, part of the Bengal Tiger over there on the On3. It's he, Billy Embody, and Shay Dixon does some awesome work with film breakdowns each and every week and joins us most weeks here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Let's talk a little basketball here as we exit. Is there a little momentum for Matt McMahon and company on the recruiting trail?
Oh, yeah. for Matt McMahon and them to get Curtis Givens, the four-star point guard out of Memphis, it was a shock, honestly. Up to basically 24 hours before, all signs had pointed to Memphis. Everybody was reporting pretty much Memphis being the leader. And then I tuned into the ceremony, and we have, maybe some hope or something, but I still was thinking Memphis, and he says LSU. That was one of the bigger surprises that I've seen in a while. So that's a really good flip for them. And that they add that to Robert Miller, and that's two, essentially, on threes ranking, that's two top 40 players. And if you can get two top 40 players in any class for LSU, that is a huge get. And then they're still working to maybe get another four-star caliber prospect or two. So, yeah, I definitely think they have momentum. I think Matt McMahon should be, very much complimented and praised for what he's done in this 2024 class, especially if they get a third top 50 player.
What are the chances they can land Victorious Miller?
I think pretty high. Pretty high. That's probably the one that I would say they're in the best spot in for the rest of the class to round it out. That would be a tremendous get because you have Curtis Givens at point guard, Victorious Miller as kind of your off guard, and then Robert Miller as your big. So that's the ideal class to me. And I based on everything we've heard and talked to and read, LSU's been probably the most consistent recruiting force for Victorious Miller at this point. So that would be a huge get. I think he's ranked, I don't have it in front of me, somewhere around 40 in this class as well.
That would be fantastic. Love to see it for Coach McMahon and the Tigers on the hardwood. Matthew Brune will be all over that when the time comes, but we'll stick to football for now. Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks. Anytime.
He is Matthew Brune, the Bengal Tiger, part of the On3 network. He really does a great job with these film breakdowns. For those that have not read them or seen them, if you go over to the Bengal Tiger, you can check it out. He takes gifs of the plays and kind of talks about what he's seen. He's got 5, 6, 7 in this story of Auburn playing defense and offense. It kind of gives a thought on what they're trying to do on both sides of the ball. I found it really, really fascinating. And he's pretty high on Auburn's running game and their defense to this point now. Very low on their passing game, and they haven't been a great team this year. But LSU still have their hands full with some aspects of this Auburn team. We appreciate Matthew for shedding a light on that. We'll talk SEC football power rankings coming up in 15 minutes when we come back. Talk a little bit about the black and gold. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Another week of NFL season right around the corner, so get ready for the start of NFL week because right now all customers get a no-sweat same-game parlay for Thursday Night Football with FanDuel. Just place a 3-leg same-game parlay on this week's game, and you'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets with a chance at a bigger payday. Build your own or choose from one of the popular same-game parlays pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. Visit FanDuel.com/1045ESPN so you don't miss out on your chance to get a no-sweat same-game parlay on America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. Refund issued knowledgeable bonus bets expires 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms of sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you're somebody who knows gambling problem wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
His name was Cain. He had a horse along the countryside. I saw him ride. One day they found him.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Scooncha, fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water. They can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor? So you stay right where you need to in casting lines. Or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast. All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years, they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front-to-back boat service.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Wednesday's Hump Day AFR, presented by Pluckers. Brian Kelly and Hugh Freeze update their team's preps for Saturday's game in Tiger Stadium. Russ Mitchell joins us. We'll head to Houston to get an update on the Texans. It's AFR 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I want to give congratulations to Alvin Falstich. Alvin, our Week 6 winner in the 2023 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em Contest, wins a Twin Peaks gift card. Don't forget to make your picks for Week 7 by noon tomorrow. Play the 2023 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em today at 104.5 ESPN.com. You know, I think to a lot of us, I don't think it felt this way in the Saints front office, but to a lot of us that are sitting there watching the Saints, it kind of felt like last year when the season ended, the Saints were at a bit of a crossroads. The Jameis Winston experiment or strategy had not worked. He was not going to be your starting quarterback. That's the most important position in football. And you had to decide one of two things. You were either going to spend a significant amount of money bringing in a free agent quarterback, or you were going to try to find one in the draft. Now, the best way I've seen teams in recent memory grow into elite level teams has been to find a quarterback in the draft and spend money around that cheap, good quarterback. Look at Philadelphia. Look at Cincinnati. Look at Kansas City in the early Mahomes years. Look at San Francisco. The teams that are great are teams that are young at quarterback, cheap at quarterback, and have paid a lot of people around them. Now, we just went through an era where the Bucs were spending, that Tampa was spending a bunch of money on Tom Brady, and the Saints were spending a bunch of money on Drew Brees, and the Packers spent a bunch of money on Aaron Rodgers, and the Steelers were paying a bunch of money for Ben Roethlisberger, and all those teams are really good too. So there's no one way to do this, but that's the way that most of the teams right now that are really good in the NFL have done this thing. And I thought that's where the Saints were headed. I thought the Saints would not be very good this year with Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston or whoever, and try to get a pick in the draft and start over at quarterback. But the Saints front office, I don't think ever saw it that way. Dennis Allen certainly never saw it that way. And that's not what happened. You went out and spent $150 million on a quarterback. Now, that's not breaking the bank for a quarterback. It sounds like $150 million. It's below the going rate for a great NFL quarterback. And you've got an average quarterback. And no matter what you want to say about the salary cap and the Saints manipulating it, it doesn't exist, they can do whatever they want and all that kind of stuff, spending $150 million on a quarterback as opposed to signing one for a cheap deal in the NFL draft does take away from the rest of your roster's money pool, okay? You can't do both. So the Saints went with, we're going to spend a lot of money on quarterback. And that doesn't mean that the Saints can't get really good with Derek Carr at quarterback. What it means is you're going to have to find cheap players elsewhere. And the draft is the first place you find cheap players. And you start to look at the draft being so important over the next couple of years while Derek Carr is in the life of this contract, because you've got to fill out your roster with drafted players that work out. And one of the guys that is catching my eye, and I think catching a lot of people's eyes, is the emergence of Howden. Jordan Howden was a fifth-round pick, guy you kind of found on the scrap heap, 146 overall. He's an old player. He's 23 years old as a first-year player because he's one of the COVID guys who was in school during COVID and played for 5 years. But he played 59 games for Minnesota. He started 49 college games. That's a ton of time to start. 240 tackles, 24 passes defended, 5.5 sacks, 4 interceptions, honorable mention, all Big Ten selection. And when we looked at this Saints secondary, especially safety, you're looking at Tyrann Mathieu, you're looking at Marcus May, two guys that you spent some money on that are older players that maybe phase out during this Derek Carr window. And is Jordan Howden good enough to assume a starting role and be a really good cheap player? That's certainly the hope. He was one of the best graded rookies last week in the absence of Marcus May. Made 4 tackles, just broke up 2 passes, including one that was picked off by Pete Werner. And I'm not here to tell you that I think Jordan Howden's headed to the Pro Bowl. That's not the point of the segment. But as you start to look at places where they can spend very little money and bring in real key contributors, that may be a guy that you can look to because your safeties are aging. And in this day and age of NFL football, college football even for that matter, but in NFL football, you better be really good in the secondary because all the teams that are really good can throw it all over the place. Now, I know the Eagles run it great, and I know the 49ers run it great, but the really good teams have really good passing offenses, and you got to be able to run with those guys. I have no doubt that Marshawn Lattimore can do that. I think you've hit in the draft with Paulson Adebo and with Alontae Taylor. They look really, really good. So you're starting to fortify that secondary with some guys who aren't breaking the bank. And I think that's a very, very good thing when I look at the Saints and the salary cap and the situation that they're in. There's no question the Saints have to improve their roster moving forward. The roster as it's constituted right now, in my opinion, is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. But you're always chasing that. And if we've seen anything with this Saints management team, it's that they're always chasing that and they're never tearing it down. They're always trying to build. Some of the pieces are shoddy and may fall off, and you've got to find a new piece for that. But they're always trying to build. They're never scrapping the whole thing and figuring it out another way. That's not in their DNA. So while I'm looking at this Saints roster and I'm looking at this Saints team, I'm going, I don't think that's the team that's going to make a lot of noise in January. I'm also evaluating the program as a whole and going, the franchise as a whole, hey, what do we got that's good here? What can we build on? And maybe Jordan Howden is one of those guys. He's been active for 4 or 5 games. He's played in 2 of them and looks like a pretty athletic dude who at the very least is very experienced and older than your general 21-year-old 3-year out of college rookie. How much will we see him this week? I don't know. Marcus May's back. Tyrann Mathieu just had a pick 6 and is very much a starter at safety. You've got your corners figured out. So maybe you don't see him at all for the next couple of weeks unless somebody goes down. But I'm just looking. And Jordan Howden certainly caught my eye on a play that Pete Werner will get the credit for the interception. He made that play. It just fell in Werner's lap. He's the one who made the hit. He's the one who made the play. And I'd like to see a little bit more of that. He's not a guy that caught my eye too often in the preseason. But, hey, maybe Jordan Howden is a guy that is one of these hits late in the draft that the Saints are going to have while they dump a bunch of money into their quarterback. They dump a bunch of money into their star corner on the end. They've got significant money invested up front on the offensive line. Paying DeMario Davis. You're paying those two safeties I just talked about. So, just a thought. We'll get you ready for Saints and Texans in the coming days. But just kind of looking at the Saints roster going, where can they tweak some things? Where can they move the money? Where can they make something happen? And hopefully you don't have to spend a bunch of money on a left tackle here moving forward. I was listening to T-Bob and Jacob here, and they were suggesting that the real weak point of the Saints team right now is at left tackle. That's a guy you invested a draft pick in. He's not breaking the bank, but that's one of your investments, and it's been uneven to this point. But he's still young. He's still in his first year playing. Hopefully that gets a little bit better. Saints and Texans coming up on Sunday. We still got Take It or Leave It to get to at the end of the show. When we come back, your favorite time of the week, it's time for some SEC football power rankings on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electric. Boudreaux's Electric. Boudreaux's Electric. Storm season just about behind us. Not totally out of the woods, but just about behind us. Still a great time to get a Generac generator installed at your home, and there's no place you'd rather go than Boudreaux's Electric. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux operating that family business for 40 years. They still operate like an old school business. They've got new age technology. One of the best things they can do at Boudreaux's Electric is monitor your Generac generator in the event that it fails for some reason. Maybe it's not time for the generator to click on. You've still got power, but one of the kids messed up the generator, or just there was an equipment malfunction at some point. Well, if it's monitored 24/7 by Boudreaux's Electric, they'll know about it. You won't know about it, but they will. They'll send a tech out there, and they'll get it taken care of so that when you need your generator to help you out, it is right there. How much better would you feel during storm season if you had a Generac generator right outside your home that was ready to click that power on immediately when the power goes out? It's inevitable down here. It's going to happen. Let Boudreaux's Electric help you out with that. All their Generac generators come with a free 10-year warranty. Call them at the same number you've been calling for 40 years. 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. That's Boudreaux's Electric.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Scooncha, fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service.
Kate Voisin, join me and the coaches Todd Black and Jimmy Roy for the next edition of Louisiana Prep Weekly. Our special guest will be Walker head football coach Chad Mahaffey. It's Louisiana Prep Weekly, Wednesday night at 6, live from Walk-Ons in Town Center on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, it's that time. Little college football SEC power rankings. We do it every week at 2:30 on Wednesdays. So let's dive in. I got to say, excuse me, that I don't know if there's too much that people are going to want to argue with the top of my list and the bottom of the list. Obviously, more often than not, there's disruption in the middle, but we haven't been too reactionary. A lot of folks not moving around this week. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 14 teams have not moved, and only 2 moved more than one spot. So we're trying not to be super reactionary. We're taking the entire body of work, not just what they did for 60 minutes the previous week, and we're putting all that together for some scientific power ratings here. And we start with number 1. That's Georgia. They're 6-0. They're 3-0 in the league. They're creeping up on Steve Spurrier's Florida team for the longest win streak in SEC history. They outgained Kentucky 608 to 183. I gave you that stat on Monday. Crazy. 608 to 183. Carson Beck, by the way, number 2 in the SEC in passing yards. Were you aware of that? Jaden Daniels, number 1. Carson Beck, number 2 in the SEC in passing yards. He's ahead of Cook at Missouri, ahead of Spencer Rattler, ahead of Jackson Dart, etc. He's ahead of Joe Milton. I mean, he's number 2 in the SEC in passing yards, and they seem to be getting a little bit better. I still don't think they're as good as they were the last 2 years, but they're the best team in the league for my money. I put Georgia at 1. That's where they were last week at number 2. Last week was Alabama. This week it's Alabama. The question is, did Jalen Milroe kind of find the intermediate passing game there? He threw for over 300 yards against A&M. We know he can hit the deep ball. He hit the deep ball against Texas. He's hit the deep ball in his career. The question is, can he do the other stuff? Can he hit the checkdowns? Can he hit the intermediate passes? Can he move the chains on 3rd and 7? He did that against Texas A&M. But how bad is A&M's secondary? Because Tyler Van Dyke did the same thing. Yeah, Auburn couldn't do it. Arkansas, with no playmakers on the outside, couldn't do it. But Alabama did. What's a little surprising with Alabama, they're 10th in the SEC in running offense and last in the SEC in sacks allowed. That's still a bit of an indictment on the offensive line that you're running the ball that poorly and you're giving up that many sacks. However, I still think the totality of these parts with the Crimson Tide is the second best team in the league. I've got Alabama at 2. That's Georgia 1, Alabama 2. Who's third? Ole Miss is third for me right now. They're 5-1, 2-1. Best piece of the resume is a loss at Bama or beating LSU by giving up 49 points and 637 yards. You be the judge, which is more impressive, going to Tuscaloosa and getting beat by 2 scores or beating LSU at the gun, giving up 50 points. But that's kind of what we've got to go on. I think Lane Kiffin's a good play caller. I think Quinshon Judkins is a good running back who's run for a lot of yards the last 2 weeks. Jackson Dart's playing at a high level, and the defense has been fine other than the LSU game. But they were terrible in the LSU game. So I don't know. You go from 3 down through about 12. You got some significantly flawed football teams. Then you get to the bottom of the list, which is just the dregs. But you got some flaws everywhere here, and I've got Ole Miss at 3. Now, y'all are going to want to break your car windshield or do something very, very unflattering here when I give you number 4. I still have A&M at 4. I know they're 4-2. I know they're 2-1 in league play. Here's why I have A&M at 4, and I haven't called LSU's name yet. A&M has a great defensive line. The defense has been average because the secondary stinks. They've got really good playmakers on offense, but the offense has been pretty average. But they're fairly stable. LSU to me is not stable at this point on defense. It's a free-for-all. A&M has not been that. They can win on both sides of the ball. They can win with really good wide receivers and an offense that really lit it up in Miami and was decent against Auburn and Arkansas. But you do look up and say, well, you only scored 27 on Auburn. You only scored 20 offensively on Arkansas. Only scored 20 on Bama. That's kind of average. But they at least function on both sides of the ball and can be very good at times. Now, they can be very bad at times, but they can be very... I haven't seen anything that would lend me to say that LSU's defense can be very good. Now, I got LSU at 5 just on the weight of the offense. I mean, listen to some of these stats, y'all. This, you know, you're watching, but it is what it is. You're 13th in the SEC out of 14 in scoring defense. Only Vanderbilt's worth. You're dead last in run defense, dead last in total defense, dead last in 20-point-plus plays allowed per game. You're 13th in third down defense. You're 13 in pass defense. You're second to last or dead last in the SEC in every defensive category I can dig up. I just can't in good conscience throw you up at the top of the list here. I would love to. And I'm glad the A&M game's in Tiger Stadium this year because I do think, and we'll get to this on Thursday and Friday, that Tiger Stadium's going to help that defense in the coming days, in the coming weeks. But it's just too bad for me to feel great about it at this point. So I got LSU at 5. I've got Tennessee at 6. They were at 7 last week. Tennessee 4-1 on the year, 1-1 in SEC play. They did dominate South Carolina. They ran for 238 yards on 6 yards per carry. That's Tennessee's identity, running the football. If you look at Joe Milton against Florida and South Carolina, the two SEC opponents he's played, 62%, which is fine, 263 yards per game, which is fine, and then 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Fine. Like, he's okay. He's probably going to hit some big plays. He's probably going to miss some easy throws. He is what he is. And they're okay on defense. Tennessee's a year away from really having this roster where it needs to be to compete in the East, in my opinion. But I still think they're at number 6 in the conference. That's where I've got them, up a spot from last week. Missouri lost this past week, but they did gain a spot in the power rankings. Missouri up to number 7. I think that Cook is very good. I think Luther Burden is awesome. I think this team is clearly better than where I had them to start the season. After 1 week, I had Missouri at 13. That was dead wrong. That's on me. Awful. But how good Missouri's actually going to be when this thing is over and the dust settled is going to come down the stretch here when Missouri plays at Kentucky, home against Tennessee, home against Florida, and at Arkansas. They can win or lose all of those games. They can absolutely go to Kentucky and win. They can absolutely lose that game. They can absolutely beat Tennessee in Columbia. They can lose that game. They can beat Florida at home. They can lose that game, and they should go to Arkansas and win, but we'll see. It's on the road. That's going to tell the story on Missouri. Right now, I got them right in the middle of the pack at 7. We'll see after that all shakes out. I moved Kentucky the biggest this week down 4 spots because they had not played anybody. I know that. You knew that. I knew that. But I like the running game. They're usually pretty good on defense. And Devin Leary, in his time as a college quarterback, has had really, really good moments. He just hasn't for Kentucky. What we saw on Saturday was Kentucky hitting its head on the ceiling. That's the ceiling. That's you getting a good resume together, a record together, then playing an elite team, playing a Bama, playing a Georgia, playing a really good LSU or Tennessee, playing a really good Florida. Boom. You hit your head on the ceiling. It happens. That's what happened. Their big problem is they're number 13 in the conference in pass offensive. You can't just hand it to Ray Davis and go. Kentucky can't throw the ball. They've got Varian Brown, who's a great playmaker. They've got Devin Leary, who had a good run in the ACC, and they can't throw the ball, and they don't score enough. So Kentucky moves back 4 spots. They were 4. They're back down to 8 now. My 9 through 14 is the same as it was last week. Credit to me for being right on the money a week in advance. Florida is at 9. They're just average at everything. If you were to go look at Florida on the stat sheet, they're not second in the league in anything. They're not 14th in the league in anything. They're like 7th or 5th in everything. run defense, run offense, sacks, third downs, red zone, passing, like big play. Like they're middle of the pack at just about everything. And because of that, some things go south and you can't stay on the field with Utah or Kentucky. Sometimes things get rolling a little bit and you run Tennessee off the field. They're not going to be consistent. They're just going to be pretty average. South Carolina's at 10. It's crazy to me that in year 3 of an SEC staff under Shane Beamer that they're this bad at running the football. 126 in the country out of 133 teams. That's why you've got 3 losses already and you're 1-2 in the league. South Carolina is at 10. I do think they're better than Arkansas, who's 0-3 in the league, and they're going to get hammered by Bama on Saturday. Arkansas, though, after this, which is a 5-game losing streak, you lost at BYU, and then you had 4 straight SEC games away from home, LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama. You're going to lose all of those 5 in a row. Can you rally the troops, Sam Pittman? Can you get Arkansas to care down the stretch? Because Arkansas can win a home game against Mississippi State. Arkansas can go to Florida and absolutely compete and win that game. Arkansas can beat Auburn in Fayetteville. Arkansas can beat FIU. Arkansas can play against Missouri at home and win that game. The question is, do they show up? I wouldn't expect them to win all those games. I expect them to compete and win a couple. But they've got to show up and do it because they've lost 4 in a row, soon to be 5 here on Saturday. They're number 11. I've got Auburn at 12. They're coming to Tiger Stadium this week. They're 0-2 in league play, 3-2 overall. Worst passing offense in the Southeastern Conference, dead last, 14th in passing offense in the SEC. Versus Power 5 teams, they are averaging 12.3 points per game on offense. That is not good. However, they showed some fight against Georgia. They held Georgia to 3.6 yards per carry. They had a chance to win that game late, which I don't think anybody thought they did outside of the folks in Vegas who probably won a lot of money on that game. But still, you don't have the roster. You're not functioning in the passing game. We'll see what they do off a bye against a bad defense on Saturday night, but I got them at 12. Mississippi State's at 13. I continue to do these power rankings, and I continue to tell you how sorry I am genuinely that I sold you a bill of goods on Mississippi State to start the season. I think they were up at like number 4 on this list at one point. I have to go back. That'd be a sad thing to research. They're awful. And I really thought their defense would be pretty good. Zach Arnett's had a pretty good unit his 3 years there. Pretty good. And they returned like the entire front 7. Here are the point totals that they've given up in games that matter. 41 to LSU, 37 to South Carolina, 40 to Bama, and even Western Michigan, who got annihilated by Syracuse and Iowa, scored 28 points on them. They can't stop a nosebleed. They're bad. Just lucky for the folks in Starkville that you've got your cowbells and you're better than Vanderbilt, who comes in at 14. 0-3 in league play, been outscored 197 to 20. Next up, Georgia and Ole Miss. So I'm sure that's going to get a lot better for Vanderbilt. Actually, it is not. It'll get worse. But that's my SEC Power rankings. Georgia stays at 1. Bama stays at 2. A little shake up towards the top here with Ole Miss at 3, A&M at 4, and LSU at 5. Got Tennessee at 6, Missouri at 7. Kentucky moves down from 4. They're now at 8th in the league. And my 9 through 14 stayed the same. Florida at 9, South Carolina at 10, the Arkansas Razorbacks at 11. In the 12 spot, you've got Auburn, Mississippi State at 13, and Vandy anchors down at the bottom where they tend to set up shop, and they're pretty consistent in that spot. So that's your SEC Power rankings for this week. We'll see how they change over the next 7 days. We'll take one more timeout, come back, we'll play some Take It or Leave It, and get on down the road on a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Ochsner Health and MD Anderson Cancer Center have partnered to create Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center in southeastern Louisiana. This collaboration between Ochsner and MD Anderson is going to provide patients in the region with access to cancer treatments that are among the most advanced in the nation. Ochsner is the first and the only provider in Louisiana that's got a fully integrated cancer program based on MD Anderson's practice standards and treatment plans. They've got customized treatment plans based on some of the latest research. They've got access to MD Anderson's protocols and practice standards, as well as their specialists and researchers. And they're going to offer access to select clinical trials to eligible patients in this program. The great news, that there's expert care being offered in 7 locations across New Orleans, St. Tammany, and Baton Rouge. Here in the capital city, we've got the Ochsner Cancer Center. And Ochsner and MD Anderson are going to work together to certify additional sites moving forward in the future. We've all been affected by cancer one way or another, and Ochsner and MD Anderson partnering together to continue that fight. If you'd like more information on Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center, we invite you to head over to ochsner.org.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hannegriff, join us for the Thursday edition of Live at Lunch from Jolie Pearl and Town Square Pizza. Matt Humans is with us. Dwayne Colucci is with us, and Paul Nolan giving us a Thursday night pick. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Tomorrow's show should be a good one. Excited about it. We got Luke Johnson coming on, as always, to talk about the black and gold as they get ready for Houston. Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers, will join us in advance of the Coach's Show, the Brian Kelly Show at TJ Ribs every Thursday night. We'll also hear from Jason Caldwell, who covers Auburn for Inside the Auburn Tigers and Auburn Undercover. We always love our Auburn breakdowns from Jason, who's been coming on with me on the pregame show since 2017. So it's been quite a run for Jason and I. So full look ahead at the football weekend to come as we get into it tomorrow on our Thursday show, always presented by Rouse's. But we got one order of business on a Wednesday show here, and that's take it or leave it.
All right, first one here. The official World Golf Rankings declined to offer Live Golf World Rankings points. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it.
I'll take
and
it.
This is, like I've always argued with the Live thing, is purely my rooting interest at heart. Like, I want the best players not playing on Live. I don't care about their team format. I don't care about shotgun starts and goofy scoreboards and huge purses and the watering hole where they're throwing beers everywhere. And I don't care about any of that. I just want the best players in the world playing on the PGA Tour together. That's in my best interest. It's not in the best interest of the golfers that took $100 million. I don't really care about the $100 million. I just want to watch them play. So any de-incentivization that goes into Live Golf is good for me, who's trying to get golf back in one piece. This is not really a shot at Live. This is the criteria that were set up by the official World Golf Rankings for tours that allowed you to get points. There are dozens of tours that allow you to get World Golf Rankings points. But you need to play 72 holes. You need to have a cut. You need to have players qualify to get into the fields, not be selected based on who wants a check this week to get in. And you could say that that's created a monopoly in golf, and I can't argue with that. And that's kind of the crux of this entire issue. But I'm just speaking for Hunt Palmer here. I want to watch the best players play on the PGA Tour, so I'm thrilled that the Live players are not going to get World Golf Ranking points. And you might say, well, why do any Live players care if they get World Golf Ranking points? The only thing they care about on the World Golf Ranking points is it's how you get into majors. The Masters takes the top 50, U.S. Open, Open Championship, PGA. They take players based on world ranking points. If you're playing on Live, you're not getting any, so you're not going to be able to play in those unless you've got another exemption, whether you've won a tournament or whatever the case may be. So that's the controversy here. I'm just glad that it doesn't go Live's way because I don't want anything to go Live's way.
The MLB playoff system doesn't reward the best teams enough. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, that's
I'll
fair.
take it.
I don't want to change them, though. This is the same thing I've talked about, the expanded playoff in college football, the expanded playoff in Major League Baseball. Like, I just think it creates more interest for more people if you have more people alive for their playoffs later in their season. I fully understand wanting to reward the best teams. And truthfully, if you were trying to do this the most fair way in Major League Baseball, you would play 162 games of a balanced schedule that was not weighted towards your division, and the teams in each league, one team in each league that had the best record would play in the World Series. That would be the most fair, because boiling 162 down to 3, like you do in this format, can rip it out of teams' hands pretty quickly. Unequivocally, the best division in Major League Baseball this year was the AL East. You had the Rays were fantastic, the Orioles were fantastic, the Blue Jays were fantastic. The Yankees and Red Sox weren't even that bad. That was easily the best division. They got into the playoffs and literally didn't win a game. They all got swept out of the playoffs. Literally did not win one game. That's probably not indicative of the season that they had. That's what I've been trying to communicate over the years to LSU baseball fans, that, like, baseball can go pretty quickly. Like in the NBA, not a lot of upsets because the better basketball team usually wins individual games and certainly wins in the course of 4 out of 7. There's very rarely going to be an upset. In baseball, upsets all over the place. Hot starting pitcher, line drive right at somebody, lose a ball on the lights. And all of a sudden, huge plays that swing games can happen. And you may see a situation where the Phillies beat the Braves in the next couple of days, and they were easily the best team in baseball, and they may not make it through. But I think it's more exciting. I think it's more exciting for more the Cubs were in it late with the Diamondbacks and with the Reds and all that. That was entertaining. And the Braves and Dodgers were trying to make sure they got home field. And I just think you need to win it in the playoffs, get in the playoffs and make it happen. Put yourself in the best position you can. Is it the most fair thing in the world? No, it's not. Is it the way I like it? Yeah, it probably is.
All right, last one here. Kentucky coach Mark Stoops said Georgia bought some pretty good players. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. Now, I do agree with J.D. Pickell, who we had on the first hour, when he said that, hey, if I'm a Kentucky player and my coach is saying, hey, we need to buy better players than the ones we currently have, like, that's a tough thing to say. But Stoops is probably a little edgy on the coach's show. Had a guy come in and say, hey, you've only won 2 games in your Kentucky career against SEC teams that finished with a winning SEC record, which is true. The stat's a little bit skewed because if you lose to Georgia and you lose to Kentucky, or you lose to Florida and you lose to Kentucky, the odds of you going 5-3 in the league are tough. But it's a fact. He probably bristled at it a little bit, and he said that. The fact of the matter is that Georgia is buying a lot of really, really good players, and that's the rules, and they're doing a great job of it. Kentucky's probably going to spend that money on McDonald's All-Americans, if we're being quite frank, and John Calipari would like it that way. So Kentucky, as I said in the power rankings, is hitting their head on the ceiling. It's what they're doing. That's kind of what they've done for the last 3 years. And he's not wrong. He just probably should not have said it. That would be my opinion on that matter. So that'll do it for Take It or Leave It here on this Wednesday. Have that work week in the rear view mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us for the last 2 hours. I opened up with my thoughts on LSU and Auburn week and kind of what it means to me and what it's meant for the last 30 years now that we don't have it every single year moving forward. J.D. Piquel from On3 Sports with us, talking all things college football at 1:15. It was a What If Wednesday. What if I win the Powerball? Well, I told you I'll be back at work tomorrow if I win the Powerball, so you won't be able to tell from that. But I'm not going to be here for that long if I win the Powerball. We're going to fill this 1-3 spot, and then I'm going to be off work forever. If that's the case. Had a few other What If Wednesday questions. Matthew Brune on his film study on the Auburn Tigers at 2 o'clock. My thoughts on Jordan Howden's Saints will draft fine in the late rounds. And then my SEC football power rankings. You can find all of that on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your on demand podcast, audio, sound, you can find us. You can always find us on YouTube as well. That's going to do it for us here on this Wednesday. Matt's about to drive you home on After Further View. We will see you tomorrow on The Hunt Palmer Show.